it's Mon Mothma's Holonet. We're just posting on it. Welcome back to Mothmanet News and our coverage for Andor Season 2. This is extremely late. This video is extremely late. This is the review video for the second arc of Andor Season 2, and we're getting the third arc tonight. So I'm incredibly late with this. Still not doing well. Life happened. I might be worse off tonight coming out of episode 7 through 9, but hey, I'm gonna keep chugging along. This video will be covering episode 4, Ever Been to Ghorman, episode 5, I Have Friends Everywhere, and episode 6, What a Festive Evening. They came out on the 29th of April, a week ago. Yes, I know, I'm incredibly late. I was hoping to get this review up much sooner, but then again, life happened. The next review will be posted on time, maybe even early. I don't know. I'm probably going to watch this arc at least twice tonight. You're still going to get a first thoughts video tonight. You know, I'm not going to be recovering quickly from this next one. Obviously, spoilers ahead. First, about episode 4, Ever Been to Ghorman. When I tell you I shrieked when I saw the names of these episodes, especially episode 4. It got me so nervous. I've stayed nervous ever since. I'm not ready for the Ghorman massacre at all. I was also invited onto my friend's podcast / YouTube channel to talk about this episode, and I highly recommend checking it out. It's called Droids Are Welcome Here. I've been a guest twice already during this Andor season. I talked about Sagron Natima, episode 2, and Ever Been to Ghorman, episode 4. So yeah, I always love chatting with my friends about Star Wars. There's just something very important to note about episode 4 and this whole arc is that I made a mistake and broke my own rules again. I fell in love with something in Andor that is 100% doomed. I fell in love with Ghorman, the Gors, the Ghorman front. I'm very much not okay about it. I swore that I was not going to fall in love with doomed people and things. I keep breaking it. More on this later. I'm going to be gushing about Ghorman a lot. Vive la Ghorman! Anyways, one of the things that I find really interesting in this season is the way that we've been introduced to Bix in the first 2 arcs of this season. I think it's wildly fascinating to see what is haunting her and how it's haunting her. It's been a couple of years since her torture at Dr. Gorst's hands, and yet he's still wreaking havoc on her life through her mental health. It makes a lot of sense that all these things are really vivid and present for her, because I don't think she actually has come to terms with all of it yet. She hasn't had the time, really, or the space, or the support in order to come to terms with her trauma and work through it all. Bix is still very much in the process of rebuilding her life, but it's something that she hasn't been able to do because her life isn't even stable at this point in time. The fight against the Empire doesn't really allow for stability and rest to recuperate and heal from trauma. It sticks with you in a way that so few things do. That's just how trauma works. And as someone who has dealt with different forms of post-traumatic stress, I think the way that Bix is portrayed is actually quite good in this show. My experiences, of course, vastly different to Bix's, but it's clear that the trauma lingers and it has a continuous impact. I think Bix, even without the trauma, is a very well-rounded character, but seeing the way that characters respond to things that are difficult is not only a push for the actor or actress who's portraying them, but it's also a push for the character to see what their limits are as well. So hats off to Adria for just knocking my socks off with this season. I loved Bix in season 1. Season 2, I love her even more. And yeah, I think that it's very important to also show that Bix's healing isn't linear, right? She can have those moments of happiness, joy, not constantly be focused on her trauma. And then things will happen and she slips and she's going through it again. And that is also really important to note because so many things forget that healing isn't linear. And I think that the ending of episode 6 is very interesting in this regard because of how we left it. the next time we see Bix will be about a year after she killed Dr. Gorse. And, I think that bringing back the concept of the tree remembers and the axe forgets, which slightly was explored in season 1 in the Aldani arc. The 5th episode is literally named The Axe Forgets. Gorst did not remember Bix, right? Torturing her did not leave an impact on him at all, and it kind of makes one wonder how many people he has done the same things to in the years since Varix. I love that they brought this back because it really shows the dark truth about people who harm others habitually. They don't remember the people they harm. They don't care what happens to them. They genuinely do forget and move on to hurt other people, right? Whereas, the person who goes through that, they can't just let it go and forget that it ever happened because it has changed them, right? And, given the way that we've started with Bix for the first 2 arcs, where she's basically in these extremely vivid nightmares, I wonder how we're going to come into her story in the next 2 arcs. Is Bix free from Dr. Gorst, or will he continue to haunt her in a new way, right? Bix, throughout this arc, there are moments where she's like, oh, you didn't have to kill that guy, Cassian. And he's like, well, I did it to protect you. He saw your face, I have to protect you. And she's like, well, you can't always protect me. And so now I'm wondering, how that is going to play into this. Will she be able to sleep without some form of sleep aid, space melatonin? I don't freaking know. That remains to be seen. Bix deserves so much better in her story and in her life. And the way that Adria is able to portray her in the good times and the worst times ever is so beautiful. Bix feels so incredibly human to me because of all of this. There's so much complexity to Bix that I really hope we get to continue to see more of in this season, in the next 2 weeks. Bix is, again, one of those characters that I think we might lose, but I really don't want to, right? There's some characters that I'm like, I've already come to terms with the fact that you're gonna die. Bix is not one of them. Bix and Cassian's relationship in this arc really did steal my heart. I'm one of those people that's willing to ship Cassian Andor with anybody. It's more for me, it's a bit like Cassian Andor, more like Cassian and Whore. I just think that he's really charismatic, really handsome, and, there's been some things in season 1 where it was just it was kind of alluded to that Cassian isn't a guy that will typically just, be like, oh yeah, I'm just going to settle down with this one person. So the idea of him even pretending, playing a role to settle down with Bix is very interesting in this. I also felt in some places with their story this season together, or this arc together, that I was intruding. But it was really nice to see them find something akin to a pocket of peace for the 2 of them as much as they possibly could. When the 2 of them are shopping in episode 4, it's so sweet, it's so precious, but at the same time, you see that they are still impacted by the things that they have experienced and they are currently still experiencing. I do think it was semi-hilarious to see Cassian so out of his element in basically a space bodega. This is the most normal thing we've ever seen this man do. It's grocery shopping, and yet it feels so unnatural. Also do think that the shopkeeper, flirting with Bix was a nice change of pace when compared to the last guy, who was much more sinister and way creepier with his flirting. I think it is the past that made Cassian so nervous to see Bix get flirted with. And he is a wonderful either fake or maybe real husband to Bix. I love that about him. He knows very well that she can take care of herself, but he wants to also be able to take care of her and to be there to back her up if and when she needs it. The shopkeeper feels relatively harmless, but a big part of trauma and like the trauma that Bix has been through. And a big part of also just being a woman in society is that you know that can change at the drop of a hat. And I really hope that it does not change. Let this shopkeeper guy just be normal. He just likes to, you know, sell his fruits and things, right? He just happens to be a little bit more friendly. Please let him be a normal guy, okay? Like, please. And in line with, like, Cassian protecting Bix, their discussion about the soldier that Cassian killed to protect her, really, and it was just, like, about the fact that he saw Bix's face. We don't see very many characters, like, argue with Cassian at all throughout the story. Like, Jyn is another one in Rogue One. She's able to go toe-to-toe with him and stand her ground. Bix is very much the same. I think I see, like, a lot of kind of, like, not super deep at the moment, but I think we're going to see more parallels between Jyn and Bix in the coming weeks, building up to that relationship that Cassian and Jyn have in Rogue One. You know, speaking about Rogue One, I think we are moving into the man that we see there with Cassian, who has done terrible things for the rebellion, though probably not in this arc necessarily, because of what he's doing. Is pretending to be a fashion designer really that bad? Might be like something of like a crime on Ghorman, where it's just like, you impersonated a fashion designer. Criminal behavior. But hey, who is gonna prosecute that? How do they prosecute that? Like, I don't know. I don't think anybody's gonna be able to. Bix and Cassian's dinner together also so normal, so beautiful, and I like the way that the storyline between Cassian and Bix in this arc is that, like, when they're together, like, it just kind of feels normal. They deserve the domesticity that Cyril and Dedra had in the first arc. Like, I love to see it. I love to see it, because I'm like, why were those fascists playing house? And now it was like, well, now the rebels are playing house. And I'm like, okay, yay. They truly deserve this. They deserve the whole world. I wish we got more domestic and normal Bix and Cassian moments. Like, a whole season of this, please. Like, I'm a slice of life lover. I think they're underrated, and we need more of them, because you can get, like, a lot of really great character moments and character building in slice of life stories. Because not everything is a big action sequence. And sure, big action sequence can grow you as a character or whatever, but it's never really, like, the same as, hey, this is just who I am in my day-to-day life. The rainfall in the background with the lingering storm is so beautiful. I think it's very symbolic as well, because, you know, rainfall is a little bit like, it feels somewhat peaceful, but then with the lingering storm, it's very much like, you know, oh, we have this moment of peace, but shit's still gonna hit the fan. And, you know, even with this moment of peace, they still need to work through their trauma, and part of that is confronting it, and they do that. They do that at the end of episode 6 for Bix. Sorry, that was a hiccup. That was terrifying. And I think that Gorst being gone is also going to help Cassian find peace, because he has this need for Bix to feel safe. He has put her safety as a priority multiple times in this series. He puts his neck on the line to protect her, to help her, because that's what he cares about. And in some of their moments, yeah, the emotions are strong, and yeah, I feel as though I'm intruding, like I said. Hats off to Diego and Adria for the absolute chemistry and energy that they have in abundance. When you put these two on a screen together, it is electric. A huge part of casting is ensuring that the chemistry is there between the actors, and it certainly is. And there's so many different kinds of chemistry, and I feel like the casting for this show is so immaculate because of just the the chemistry in different combinations that everybody has with each other. You know, sometimes it's weird. Sometimes it's like you're watching two people and you're like, I'm intruding in a private moment. Other times, like, you know, you have that comedic banter, you have that, you can feel the tension, and it's just like, so these actors are just phenomenal, and it's no surprise that so many of them have like stage credits and a lot of like really good projects under their belts, because some actors are good that they just don't necessarily have those things that really make this show feel so real. And yeah, so huge shout out to the casting department. I don't think they missed with any of it. It's so incredibly on point. The Bix and Cassian moment with the hands being something Phyrexian, like, I thought that. I was like when I was watching it, I was like, I'm intruding. This is some kind of Phyrexian thing. And it was. And I was like, oh, that's really great. Like, I love to see that. Because it's like, even though they've left their home and probably will never be able to return, which isn't the first time for Cassian and probably won't be the last, they carry Ferrix with them wherever they go, even in a place like Coruscant. Ferrix is important to them, not just as individuals, but as a couple, and I really love that. I feel like we're going to see that I hope that there are some Ghormans who survive the Ghorman massacre. Is that we see the way that they hold on to their home and hold on to their culture. Dylan and Enza, please don't die. I need for the two of you to be happy, please. Like, we don't know what happened to Ferrix after season 1. We don't have any answers. All we have is theories, and that hurts. Like, the things that these characters take with them might be the only things left of the people of Ferrix. And I love the reunion scene between Bix and Cassian in episode 6 as well. It's important to see them being playful and flirty with each other, because we still don't know if their marriage is a front or not. It's fascinating to me. I need to know, but I also might have to cope with not knowing. I like how, you know, he was like, oh yeah, like, I was Varian Sky, I was a fashion designer, I was very, very pretty. I'm like, well, you already are very, very pretty. But I think that, you know, seeing them happy, genuinely happy, even for a moment, is so crucially important, especially when we know that it probably won't last. And it doesn't last in this moment because of Luthen. And I don't like that Luthen is coming between them in a way, even though I still appreciate him going and helping Bix get out of her own head and give her someone to talk to while Cassian is gone. Obviously, Cassian sees this in a different light, and I think we're going to see maybe more parallels between Bix and Cassian and Cinta and Vel. And I'm not the first person to bring that up, not by a long shot, where they realize that in Luthen's mind, they're more valuable separately than together, because Bix is, you know, she could in some ways be a liability, because she is kind of distracting Cassian from the work that needs to be done. Like, Cassian's like, oh, can Bix come with me? Oh, you know, why are you going and talking to Bix? And all of these other things. Like, a lot of the tension between Cassian and Luthen feels very Bix related, and I feel like a lot of the tension between Vel and Luthen is also very Cinta related. We might see more of that tonight. Who knows? I don't know. Yeah. And it might ultimately cause these falling outs to happen. And, you know, Cassian was like genuinely upset, and I think a lot of that has to do with trust. After all, like, when Luthen does visit Bix in episode 5, immediately she's worried about Cassian, probably thinking that he died on his not dangerous mission to Ghorman. And so, like, yeah, his visit ultimately helped. In the beginning, though, it could have done a lot more damage. I'm really excited to see where Bix and Cassian's relationship goes in the next 2 arcs. Fingers crossed Bix Colleen surviving, living her life on a little beach, sipping like space margaritas, because she deserves the best in life. I think that this arc was really fascinating for Cyril in a lot of ways. First time I was watching season 1, I will admit, like, I was curious about Cyril, but at the same time, I didn't think too much of him for most of the season. Yet, Kyle Soller is a standout and literally phenomenal. Like, I love Cyril now. He's so fascinating to me. And I think part of that is, like, listening to my friends talk about the complexities of Cyril Karn, and I'm like, yeah, go on. I want to hear more. Like, I love him. I think that so much can be done with him and about him. Will he die? Maybe. Will he defect? I hope so. I talked at length about Cyril Karn with my friend Emily during the Andor season 2 countdown. So if you haven't seen that, highly recommend going to watch it because it's so good. It was so much fun. The beginning of this arc with Cyril, where we meet him on Ghorman, I thought it was so fascinating that a lot of people, including Edie, took it to mean that Cyril's relationship with Dedra is over. Especially since we know that she's in charge of Ghorman. Like, simultaneously, would she not want someone that she can trust or control at the helm there on a day-to-day basis? You know, on the other hand, Dedra's keeping secrets from Cyril, and he only knows so much. So it's like, are you in a good relationship if your partner is keeping secrets that might get you killed from you? It's not a healthy relationship that Cyril and Dedra have. But we also do see that Cyril is upholding his, like, kind of like his end with the bargain, by talking to Edie, like, every week, you know? I was never really of the mind that the two of them were split up, but then again, like, I may have become a slightly delusional Cyril Karn, Dedra Meero shipper in the past few weeks. Like, I think that the two of them are fascinating together. I like how weird it is. My fears were much more alleviated when they had their little meeting, because she's at home, relaxed, you know, in civilian attire. I feel as though if they had split up, he would no longer be able to or allowed to see her so intimately. And the lead up to that meeting is just hilarious. Like, the security guys watching a pod race and then denying Cyril entry into his own office. They're like, no, man, we gotta follow the rules. It's like, my dudes, you're literally watching a pod race on the clock. Like, is that following the rules? And I think that later on, the ISB sweep of the Bureau of Standards in episode 5 is really interesting. Because, like, Cyril would have had to tell Dedra about that, right? Because it is kind of important for the Empire that there is the Ghorman front is watching Cyril, because Cyril's meant to be, like, spying on them, right? It's very, very interesting. Like, I do think Cyril shouting and carrying on about it, he knew that he had to know that they were bugged, because otherwise, why would the Ghorman front be watching him, right? Part of the point is that the Ghorman front is watching him so that he can infiltrate and, you know, do what the ISB needs done, right? What Dedra needs done. Again, I still don't know what Cyril's game is here, but it was something that I foresaw with him giving information to the Ghorman front. But Sam giving him that spider for his mom, like, Cyril knew she would fucking hate it. I just know that. And with the spider that Cyril gives to Edie, her naming the spider Cyril is very fascinating to me, because, like, with the way that they're speaking at the meeting in episode 1 about how the Ghor are like spiders and they're, you know, building this anti-Ghorman propaganda campaign. Like Edie calling a spider souvenir thing, like naming that after her son, and then kind of comparing him to a spider, and the way that she is very like against the idea of him being on Ghorman. She thinks that he's becoming like a Ghor, which is very interesting to see, because again, I still don't know how it's going to end. Cyril Karn, if you want to defect, please defect. We love you for that. Cyril and Dedra's scene in the flat, though, the relationship is still so weird. Dedra kissing him on the cheek, I squealed. I love it. I really love Dedra's new fits this season. I need to really know what happened with the rest of that hour after Cyril turned out the lights. They're so weird. And again, because I'm talking about Dedra here, if you're not like following my friend Beth, Mara J. Skywalker's on Instagram or on TikTok, please do, because she is incredibly intelligent and says so many smart things about this show that I'm in awe of her on a daily basis. Yeah. And also Emily Stardust M for all of the things that you could ever want to hear about Cyril Karn. And, you know, the way that Cyril is talking about connecting with the Ghorman front, I do think that he's being used by literally everybody, right? You know, because Dedra's obviously manipulating him into helping the ISB, even though, you know, he might think that that's what he wants to do. But at the same time, like, the Ghorman front's just like, I mean, hey, you could just give us the information that we need and all of that. And, you know, he knows of the ISB's plan to a point, but they're not telling him about the real reason. They're not telling him about the energy initiative, Death Star. And, you know, Cyril is so desperate for validation, and he always has been. It is very important that the ISB knows as well that Cyril's passing the Ghorman front accurate information, and that is dangerous to the Ghorman front. He doesn't fully know what's going on, and I fear for him. I love Cyril Karn, and that was not something I was expecting when I was going into season 1. With regards to Luthen and Clea and their like storylines, Luthen and Lonnie trying to figure out what's going on Ghorman is so incredibly fascinating to me. Luthen not knowing, though, does lead to a lot of problems further down the road. And, you know, it's one of those things where it's just like, oh, well, you know, we don't know what's going on here, yet we need to be part of it in some way. Like, they need answers, but at the same time, are those answers really going to do the people of Ghorman good? Will the Ghorman front benefit from being connected to Luthen? I do not think so, personally. And then Luthen sending Cassian to Ghorman is interesting. I don't trust Luthen's intentions. He doesn't have to get involved, but we know that he wants it to go up in flames because of the impact that it will have. He has been shown more than once to have this need to push the Empire to do something so extreme, to make people suffer. And he is a fascinating character. Stellan Skarsgård does a wonderful job portraying him. I do not trust Luthen, and he's one of those people that I'm like, I don't like you, but your character is amazing and just insanely good. The intro for episode 5 Clea waking up and just fiddling with the radio, only to like literally catch something that's going to be super important and incredibly relevant to the following episode. The buildup is immaculate. At least we know that Luthen probably isn't selling forgeries, because, you know, they're off the hook for that one. Although they are slipping microphones into the things that they're selling to some people. Like, Clea was a little bit too concerned though, so maybe it has happened in the past. Yeah, she's just so good at getting information out of people that they shouldn't share. Girl is like the queen of retail and customer service. Because, like, speaking as a former barista and, like, a lounge server who, you know, works in that kind of environment, the way that people will just say things around me or tell me things, so, like, I definitely shouldn't know this, is hilarious. And, yeah, it feels like her own little Jedi mind trick, as it were. Her Jedi mind trick is being the queen of retail and customer service. I thought it was great having Sam Witwer be the one briefing Cassian. I just love when Sam Witwer is in a Star Wars. It feels so Star Wars when he's there. Luthen, 100% overreacting. It's important that they have as many ears in as many places as possible in order to find people who could be allies, uncover new threats, all of these other things. And of course, Clea's gonna fix it because she's so good at that. And even when Clea's voice is raised, she still has enormous levels of control over not just her tone and her voice, but over the situation. She's a very steady person, which is the opposite of how Luthen is when he's stressed out. I think that he needs her in so many ways because it all would have crashed and burned without her. Like, people know that Clea is the head bitch in charge. Like, Lonnie, absolutely terrified of her. He deals with hiding in plain sight on the daily. Clea coming up to him, the most terrified I've ever seen this man. Like, and of course, Clea saves the day in the end, as she always does. I love her. I love Clea Markey. Clea Markey, please survive. Lighting a candle for you, Clea. The ISB scene in episode 4, like, I really like Lonnie, personally. I loved him in season 1, love him in season 2. I also don't want him to die. I don't really want anybody to die in this show. Bro, I would be so much happier if people weren't dying, and it was like a Ghorman party instead of a Ghorman massacre. My girl Enza should not be fighting in a war. She should be in the club with her boyfriend. I don't know how I feel about Hirt taking over the access desk in the wake of Dedra secretly taking Ghorman under her control. Especially because nobody knows. Now, like, yeah, of course, on the outside, they have to be like, oh, she's being punished for what happened on Ferrix. But Hirt gets to benefit from it. Okay, whatever. But, like, Lonnie is right, though. And the way that you can hear a pin drop in that room, like, everyone else knows it, too. Robert M's phenomenal actor, just like the rest of the cast of this show. And I'm hoping we get to see more of him in the last 2 arcs. Lonnie, boy, be safe. Don't take unnecessary journeys. And, like, you know, because he's in such a terrifying position, and I feel like he could really be of use to the Alliance further down the road. Because they would need people on Coruscant. They would need people who are in the Empire still feeding them information. Legret, interesting one. He never seems to be having a good time in that room. He's always, like, Partagas is always on his ass, and I love to see it. Here, brushing off Dedra hurts me, alright? I thought he was ride or die for my girl. But no. On the other hand, I am proud of him for getting a promotion. But Dedra losing an ally sucks, especially when we see Hirt, like, buddying up to Lonnie. Like, Lonnie has his own reasons for wanting to be close to Hirt that Hirt doesn't understand. But, like, the whole, like, oh, like, you can buy me lunch. And then they're at a party together later, drinking fruity little cocktails. Slightly gay. slightly gay. And I know Lonnie has a wife and child, but a gay man can have a wife and a child. It's happened before. It'll probably happen again, you know. And then Partagaz later cornering Lonnie and Hirt about the Gorst situation. I do love the way that different people within the Empire have been referring to other people within the Empire as idiots this season. It feeds my soul. First Cyril about the ISB, and now Partagaz about military intelligence. I love to see it. I love Imperial infighting, and I feel as though it's one of the things that allows the Rebel Alliance to succeed in the end. Hirt getting drunk at Skulden's party. Me too, girl. That's all I have to say about that. If I had to go to a party at Davos Skulden's house, you best bet your ass I would be drunk. Fuck. Hate Davos Skulden. And the partisans in this arc are really interesting. Because I love Wilmon Pack. I would die for that little boy. And Wilmon helping them with the Rhydonium, specifically Pluti, is very fascinating. Like, we know that fuel is an incredibly important resource that the rebellion is in constant need of. Fuel is just an important resource. End sentence. Because, we had Rebels episodes and comic plot lines about resource acquisition, and that was some of my favorite bits, because I love that shit. I'm like, okay, but how do you have all of the fuel for these ships, you know? And I love that it was also a plot point in The Last Jedi. That could be one of the reasons why I love that movie so much, because it was like, okay, well, our fuel reserves, and I'm like, say more right now. However, the idea of one rebel cell in an ununified, non-allianced rebellion doesn't seem very good, especially for Saw's group, because while I love him, and I will 100% acknowledge that the rebellion needed people like him, and I enjoy the way that he and Mon have this kind of, not friendship, but they acknowledge the other's importance to the cause, even if they very much disagree with the way that the other does things. But might be a bad idea for Saw Gerrera to have unlimited access to Rhydonium. And I was right about that. Alright? Because, what are you breathing through that mask, Saw, in Rogue One? Which, yeah, it turns out that was Rhydo too. There's a reason for everything in this show. Nothing is a mistake. And, when Saw shot Pluti, I was, at first I was like, damn, girl, why'd you have to be such a fucking problem? Why'd you have to be a spy? And then I was like, wait a minute. How would a spy even get that far within the partisans in the first place? Were you actually transmitting to the Empire, or was Saul lying about it to keep a hold on Wilmon because he sees something in him? Because he really liked Wilmon in the beginning. I like that. He's like, Wilmon the boy. And I love that. Because he doesn't have Jyn right now, and he needs an angry young adult, borderline child, a baby, an angry baby to further radicalize. And all of these things with Pluti caused me to ask these questions, because I'm like, was he actually an Imperial spy, or was Saw lying? Or am I just thinking that Saw might be lying because I don't necessarily trust Saw, even though I love him and adore him and value his contributions to fighting the frickin' Empire? And I think that's one of the big complexities about Saw, is that he is so unreliable in all of that, but still also in a lot of ways very self-righteous. Very interesting combination. Yeah, I love pointing at the screen whenever we get like trailer shots in the show. The Partisans having X-Wings, that was not what I saw coming. I was like, ooh, X-Wings, that's gonna be like the Alliance. No. And also, this was in like my miscellaneous section, but I'm gonna bring it up now. If the sequels are being decanonized, why do sequel stands keep winning? D'Qar from The Force Awakens? That is 2 resistance bases that we have seen established in this period of time, right? We've got D'Qar established by the Partisans, and then Crate in the same year, 3BBY, being used by like Bail and Mon and their little cutesy rebel activity where Mon was totally befriending Vulptixes because that's just what I want to do. I want to go to Crate and I want to play with a Vulptix. Anyways, I really like foxes. Little crystal foxes. They're so cute. But anyways, yeah, if sequel stands are losers or the sequels are being decanonized, why the fuck do we keep winning? Why the fuck do we keep winning? Hashtag sequels for life. I love the sequels. I love that whole storyline. I do yearn for more. And usually, while I would... Oh, I do want to touch on one small thing as well. The Good Morning Coruscant show, it's just propaganda that's being spoon-fed to Coruscanti citizens day in, day out. All of that. It's bullshit. And also we know that Coruscanti citizens are being fed propaganda. That was also something that was brought up in Leia, Princess of Alderaan as well. Because this arc took place in the same year as Leia, Princess of Alderaan. Yay. I know usually I'd finish these videos and my biggest section would be on like Mon Mothma, but my biggest section is actually on Ghorman and the Ghorman front and how much I love them. So I'm going to talk about Mon's plotline now. I wish I had Erskine Samaj's job, following her around. I love him deeply, very jealous. I want to work in Mon's office. I have several Star Wars OCs that do that. I also have more than one that's also dating Erskine Samaj. It's fine. I like Senator Dasi Oran. He's very interesting, and I think that Mon fighting for Ghorman is important because Oran doesn't understand what is going on because he's not been watching Andor. Neither has Mon, but he's also like not privy to why the Empire is doing so much damage to Ghorman. He's just trying to keep his people safe, right? And, you know, in doing that, he's got to be like, oh, like, you guys, we need to stay calm. We need to just, you know, not cause any problems. Right now, Ghorman doesn't have the luxury of standing up for themselves in the Senate. And Dasiaran is supposed to be showing that to us. Mon's doing a lot of what we see her do in The Mask of Fear, trying to rally votes to help, but she's not having any luck again. Knowing that she leaves the Senate a year later, this is just more frustration building up for her, I fear. And, you know, having her talking to Dasiaran is super duper important because, you know, she's trying to help his people in a way that he is not able to, right? His hands are tied, and the best he can do is tell his people to stay calm day in and day out because, you know, again, single product economy. They just suffered a blockade 2 years before this where people definitely starved because they import everything they need to survive. Like, you know, there's just a lot of things with that where, he doesn't have the luxury of getting up in front of the Empire and being like, no, we need to put a stop to this thing. I'm standing up for my people, because the Empire would be like, fucking bet, do you want to get blockaded again? And then he's done more damage than good, right? And that's the tricky situation in the Imperial Senate, is that you can try and try and try to do the right thing and to help your people, but you're going to fail. And when Mon is talking to the other senators about the crime stats, it's easy to see that the Empire is faking it, falsely arresting people to pretend as though there's an issue with crime in order to justify their crackdowns on various worlds, especially Ghorman. Like, you know, we know that the Empire is falsely arresting people, making up their sentences as they go along, and all of this from season 1, but now we're seeing it from the other side. Does it really look like, does Ghorman really look like a place that in the past 2 years has had a 38% increase in crime? Like, is it actually crime, or is it people protesting peacefully or standing up for themselves or whatever? Like, what is the wrong that the people of Ghorman are doing here? You know, it's not going to end well for them. I'm proud and happy that Mon is doing what she can when Senator Warren's hands are clearly tied. Like, Ghorman may have some privileges, you know, being a human planet and all, being fairly well-to-do, but they're also vulnerable as a single product economy. Like, Chandrilla is more privileged despite both of them, you know, again, being those fairly well-to-do planets with a high human population. Oren makes a good point. Like, again, like, unfortunately, his hands are tied and he has to try to protect his people, and he can't let his people die on the hill of trying to take down the PORD, the Public Order Resentencing Directive. And I do love that Mon trying to take that legislation down has been carried over from season 1, as is her concern for Ghorman. Like, we know where that's going to lead her. Episode 5, I was very sad that there was no Mon and no Erskine. Hopefully it's the only episode that I have to go through without them in it for the whole season. Episode 6, when Perrin's trying to balance everything in their schedule, it's actually really great. I love it. I think it's very important to give him all of this depth that I've been wanting. And, you know, because he's probably on borrowed time, we're seeing them at one of their good points. They're functioning as a team, the senator and her people person husband. It's the first time that we've seen them one-on-one since Lita left and got married. Given that, I think she was a big, I think that Lita was a big cause of, stress and strain for them, for reasons explored in The Mask of Fear and season 1 of Andor. This is really important. There's, a lot of things that go into that. Having a kid isn't easy. Raising a child in a fascist environment, definitely not easy, not anything you want to do, because children are susceptible to propaganda in ways that adults aren't, even though adults are also very susceptible to propaganda, and that's the point of propaganda, is to be as, overreaching as possible, so as many people are feeding into it as possible. And especially when you didn't intend to have a child in the first place. Girl, again, not Lita's fault. There's so much complexities that go into that. With the oath scene, the loyalty oath scene, when Mon stops, Erskine does too. It's almost instantaneous that he follows her lead. And that, he's very quick in catching up with her when she books it. And, his smile, always, trying to make sure that no one sees how upset and stressed she is. But somebody had to notice the two of them not actually speaking during the oath scene, right? This does not bode well. We know Erskine is going to leave Coruscant with Mon. That is just part of his story. So it's he is probably going to, he's going to make it off of Coruscant alive. Mon is going to make it off of Coruscant alive. There are people that they leave behind, obviously. And I'm really interested to see more of the way that their relationship develops. Also, like, on a side note for Erskine, keep in mind that we're introduced to him in, like, episode 1, when he comes to Mon with the issue of the governor not being able to find a parking space for his new speeder. And then we find out that he's, you know, half Ghorman. And then we find out that the Tarkin massacre happened. Governors not being able to find a parking space is a traumatizing concept for the people of Ghorman. Like, Erskine, boy, my baby, you are stronger and braver than I am, because if I had to say the governor can't find a parking space for his new speeder, after that is one of the worst things to ever happen to the people on the planet that is like half of my heritage, I'd have been on the fucking floor. Like, my boy, I need to protect you. Another important part that happened in Mon's storyline this time was Benjamin Bratt as Bail Organa. I was at first a little bit nervous. Like, when the casting news dropped, I was like, fuck, shit. Like, I can't do this. Like, this is too much for me. And then I was like, okay, you know, he is important in this period of time if they couldn't get Jimmy Smits, you know. And again, if you're of the mind that you're like, I don't necessarily like it, as long as you're not being a dick about it, that's fine, right? You are more than entitled to your own opinion, but behaving like Jimmy Smits would thank you for being a dick to Benjamin Bratt, completely different subject, because he wouldn't, you know. But Benjamin Bratt, you understood the assignment. My Leia Princess of Alderaan heart was eating. If a heart can eat, I don't know. Anyways, I also thought it was interesting that Lita and Stekken are on Coruscant and they just haven't talked to Mon and Perrin at all, and I'm like, damn. Ouch. Mon won the diva off with Krennic because she's correct, and also Krennic is a bitch. She cleared his ass, helped Cleo with her mission. I love it. She didn't even know she was helping Cleo with something, but she was. Like, you know. And also, touching on that, because there's been a lot of talk about, like, oh, well, why was Krennic calling it the ISB Academy? He never went there. Why was Dedra calling them the Imperial Kinderblocks? Because giving the Imperial name for something to, or like for an institution, even if you were part of that institution prior to the Empire, it goes hand in hand with erasure of the Republic, which is something that the Empire wanted to do. So it's like, yeah, sure. If your school is now the ISB Academy, you're gonna call it the ISB Academy because that's part of the propaganda machine. It's just how it works. They're trying to erase the Republic. Don't know what's so difficult about that. But anyways, Krennic's plot armor saved his ass. At least 3 people in that room wanted to kill him. At least. And that's the most lethal Mon may have ever been at this point in time. Like, I don't think Perrin has ever seen her like that before, because she looked ready to kill Krennic. And I fully believe that Perrin is one of the only things holding her back. Never underestimate someone who chooses nonviolent action. Be grateful that they're choosing nonviolent action, because if they chose violent action, they'd probably kill you. Yeah. I love Mon. Very nervous about tonight. Anyways, now we move on to Ghorman and the Ghorman front, my beloveds that I mistakenly fell in love with. This review video is getting very long. Anyways, the shots of the Ghorman Plaza in the beginning, beautiful. I love them. Every time we go back to Ghorman, I'm like, oh, it's so pretty. It's so pretty. You know, I did say something in Droids Are Welcome Here about how nothing in the plaza is taller than the memorial to the Tarkin massacre. I was wrong. I would like to correct that. Nothing is too tall or positioned in such a way that it would be able to cast a shadow on the memorial until the Imperial building that they're building, the armory. We all know it. Lazine was right. And, I think that the Ghorman front watching Cyril bugging his office makes a lot of sense, because naturally they're going to take interest in the comings and goings of any connected Imperial officer that has become a fixture on Ghorman. I think it makes a lot of sense for them to be watching him to see if he might be of some use to them. Unfortunately, that does end up playing directly into the hands of the Empire, but maybe it will all work out in the end. Cyril, defect, I beg you. Sam is single and he doesn't like to mingle, but for you, he would do anything, I think. He doesn't just give away spiders for free, usually. And immediately upon just witnessing the Ghorman front, I was like, oh, it's giving French resistance in World War II. Sure enough, I was right. I clocked that shit immediately. And I think that it's really important that not only is Andor able to, shine a light on oppression and all of these things that are happening in our real world and draw these parallels, I think it's also important that they're able to showcase the different resistance movements against fascism from history. I think that, again, going into that as well, it's also very important that they wanted to cast mostly French actors or French-speaking people for these roles. The Ghor language, something that I need to know more about and learn immediately. I want to be able to communicate in Ghor all the time. Now, the Ghorman front, I love you. You could be slightly more subtle about breaking into Cyril's place. And yeah, again, that shows that they have a lot to learn, but that doesn't mean that they're incapable, right? This is a peaceful planet. The worst thing that we know of that has ever happened to this planet happened 16 years ago, and it would have radicalized them, but for a lot of the Ghorman front, we see that a lot of them are on the younger side. They're like Enza, Dylan, Sam, Drina, all of these characters feel like early to mid-20s at best. Sam feels like a baby to me, and so it's highly likely that they were, that they dealt with the aftermath of the Tarkin massacre in one way or another, losing family. And, when you grow up without those things that you need, it's going to radicalize you, but you don't necessarily know what to do with that anger, right? Willem Pack is another example of this, he was radicalized at a young age because of what happened to his father. And, while I will 100% defend what he did in season 1, at the same time, he didn't necessarily understand he didn't understand how to do it. He just did it. The town hall on Ghorman, very fascinating. I could watch this scene on repeat, actually. I love it. Even the people who aren't specifically part of the Ghorman front, they are mad. They are angry about the Empire. And the importance of all of them speaking in Ghor so that outsiders like Cyril, like the Empire, if they were to come in, will only be able to catch a little bit of it. He doesn't catch enough to understand. Sam is having to basically tell him what's going on, right? The people are right. They have the right to be angry. Carl Rylance is a good leader. He's well respected. And if only certain people respected the things that he knows. Sam warning Enza that Cyril is a spy is interesting. I need to know why he did it. Of course, he's not technically wrong as far as we know, but if Cyril is going to be radicalized, these are the people who are going to do it to him, right? And I just think it's great. Well-to-do folks on a peaceful world radicalizing this boy from Coruscant, being like, well, I mean, if they hurt us, they're going to hurt other people. It is very much it's like, why should you care about Ghorman? Because Ghorman is going to show you that the Empire will do whatever the fuck they want, and you probably should, people probably should have been paying attention when it was happening to all of these other groups of people, but they didn't care, which, painful. Does Cyril know more than he's admitting to Carl Rylance? I don't know. Rylance seems to think that even if Cyril is loyal to the Empire, he can be of some use to the movement, which is interesting. because, yeah, Cyril could lend some legitimacy to the movement, like, to the Ghorman front. And I love Caro and Enza Rylance just doing rebellion together. I love the father-daughter dynamics that we get in Star Wars. I have theories on why they could be so staunchly anti-Empire, but let's not get into that for now. I'm still not completely sure what Cyril's game is at this point in time. I'm sure that in a few days, tonight, actually, we will be enlightened as to how all of this will go. Enza is very much, like, seen to be somebody who's kind of in charge. Like, the others look to her. It's like, oh, well, shouldn't we tell your father this? And she's like, wait until we have a little bit more. I just think that it's so, just Caro Rylance just is so, I would trust her with my life core, and I'm worried about him. He just trusts his daughter to do the right thing and to tell him what he needs to know. Because it's like, I think that it's like, yeah, I'm going to lead you, I'm going to guide you, but you also, as a group of young people, need to be able to do this for yourselves. So yeah, I think that that's really special. Cassian's arrival on Ghorman, he is so good at getting people to talk about things. The thing about this memorial is that so many people remember it. It's part of living memory. And it's not going to survive until a time where it's not, and that's heartbreaking. I do think it's important for the bellhop to be talking about it. It's going to probably get him killed in the coming weeks, or tonight, or even after that. I don't know. I want this little bellhop boy to survive. I want all the Ghors to survive, but it matters. Like, the memorial serves as a very important reminder of what the Empire has done to these people specifically. It's going to fuel them this week, going forward. Cassian's charisma, net benefit to the cause. The memorial to the Tarkin massacre does paint a target on Ghorman, because it's like, oh, well, obviously you're going to be teaching your children why this memorial exists. You're not blindly letting the Empire get away with these atrocities, right? The very existence of the memorial to the Tarkin massacre is open defiance of the Empire, and that's why the Empire wants to cast a shadow on it, to make people forget. I love these little cafes that Ghorman has. I quit being a barista, but to be a barista on Ghorman. Cassian and Enza are both correct in their conversation. Yes, the Ghorman front needs to be more careful. They have a lot to learn, but it's also very difficult to do all of those things to get it right when your world is falling apart around you. Right. They do not have the power. We know power doesn't panic. And even though the Ghorman front, they're very intelligent, they've never been in this situation before. They don't know how to fight back. They are not fully equipped. Ghorman has been suffering for at least 2 years now, but they need help, but they are also a very proud people, to the point that others think that they are arrogant. And Caro Rylance is a prime example of that Ghorman pride. And so is Lazine. Like, the two of them, very proud men. They are proud Ghors, and that is super important. And also, the Ghorman front, they're smart enough and careful enough to know that they're not being listened to, that they do the listening, but that's just the way that they known to be, right? In protecting their family businesses, in protecting their, economy and everything beyond that. Rylance says that Caro says that the House of Rylance has been around for 19 generations, and yet this is one of the youngest, Weberries and fashion houses. Oh my god, people have been here doing what they do for thousands of years probably, and of course they have a strong love of their home. They know what they know, and they try to understand what they don't. Even them just trying to get help is very difficult for them, I think. And even when he's pissed, because he was obviously pissed about being let down by Cassian. I mean, Varian Sky. Cara Rylance is just so damn polite. Like, it's so funny. Like, Cassian, yes, bringing up very valid points, but he also does miss the point that the Ghorman front is right. Like, they're not sloppy or disorganized. They just need the help that they're not going to get. But I just think it's like, because he could have been so much meaner, but he was like, and tell your friend, I'm not impressed. Like, ooh, that's actually scathing. What the fuck? Side note, though, going into episode 6, can people stop saying crushed with regards to Ghorman? Like, oh my god, just stop, please. I'm begging. And, you know, again, on the front of valid points, Cassian's making valid points, Luthen's making valid points. I do not like the way, though, that Luthen sees Ghorman as an opportunity. But, like, what happens to Ghorman will matter to the galaxy. Human planet with human privilege, take that away, no one is safe. This is the precursor to Alderaan. Like, Ghorman would have definitely been blown to bits if A, the Death Star was ready, and B, they didn't need to strip mine this planet for its resources. I don't necessarily like the one that, I necessarily don't like that Vel is the one that gets, like, tapped in for this, though. I don't think her leadership style works for the Ghorman front. I think that in the end, she is going to cause more harm than good to the Ghorman front, especially for characters like Sam. And again, I also don't like that Cinta is roped into this. I like Cinta. I'm glad she's back. Any and all jokes I had about, you know, hands raising against Take Homa will fall. Not like, I genuinely don't think she's ready to be back in the field. However I may feel about her accident, she's not ready to be back. It's not her motivations within the rebellion that I necessarily question. It is Vel's. Vel doesn't feel like a leader sometimes. And sometimes the things that she does when she's being a leader aren't actually helpful. And I feel terrible about it. But I feel like Cinta should have challenged her. And, you know, Vel being like, oh, well, you're the only reason, I said I would only take it if you were going to be here. And it also kind of felt like Vel and Cinta were 3 seconds away at every freaking point in time from just abandoning the Ghorman front mid-mission, leaving them without any leadership or weapons. And, you know, after they got everyone's agreement, that should have been the end of, oh, we'll walk away. We'll just walk away if we don't want to keep being here. The front wasn't necessarily wrong to not trust them. Again, they're a proud people, the Gors, and suddenly they're being told what to do by strangers who have probably never been to their planet before, don't know how things work, and don't seem to want to listen to them at all. This is like, oh, don't speak, don't think, don't do anything without us telling you. Yeah, that's, sorry, why do you sound more like an Imperial officer than a rebel leader? Yeah. Like, and then during the heist, Vel's kind of just standing there yelling at them. Which, you know, again, Imperial officer vibes. And I mean, at least at Aldhani, she picked up a blaster and was doing things. But I feel like that was because she was like, I actually have stakes here. She doesn't care about Ghorman. And yeah, like, I don't know. If I was in that position and strangers were coming in, not listening to me and my leaders, and being like, oh no, you guys are not allowed to speak, think, whatever, and you're not allowed to be armed. We're completely in control of this situation. I don't think the Ghor are at fault for that. On the other hand of that, yes, I do think Sam fucked up. Without a doubt. Did Vel help the matter at all? No. Because how is telling a kid, Sam is a kid, especially compared to Vel, right? He made an admittedly awful mistake. Telling him that his life is useless? Why is it that Vel seems to have more beef with other rebels than with the Empire sometimes? This is why I question her motivations, right? Again, I don't hate her, I just dislike her sometimes. Faye Marseille, brilliant actress, right? I don't necessarily like Vel as a person all the time. Yeah. Anyways, that is going to be it for this. I did a review video podcast episode with Gold Squadron Gaze for the Mask of, review of the Mask of Fear for Gold Squadron Gaze. That just dropped. I'm going to be putting it in my link tree. I need to update my link tree. Next Monday, I'm on Ion Cannon talking about Arc 3 of Andor that's coming out tonight, episodes 7 to 9. So I'll be there Monday to talk about that. Check out Droids Are Welcome Here. Again, I did 2 episodes so far for this season of Andor on this show. I had a great time. And I'm planning some very interesting things for the summer, which will be announced after the Andor finale next week. So probably in like 2 weeks, I'll be announcing some cool stuff. As always, you can find me at Bejeweled Mothma and Mothma Updates on social media. Thank you. May the Force be with you. Vive la Ghorman.